Yeah, thank you for being here tonight. I feel like this is my first ever public talk, by the way, so if it goes pear-shaped, just bear with me. I feel tonight I've really, knowledge-wise, I've come a long way just in tonight. I feel like rather than a speaker, I'm still a student. Yeah, thank you very much. I just want you to just take a glance at this quote on the slide here. Last year, I canoed, as you've basically just highlighted, I canoed the Yukon River. Predominantly, the journey itself was to learn from native cultures to understand their spiritual beliefs, their connection to the environment, and where their cultures are actually moving forward with regards to the changing environment and the changing social issues that are happening within native communities. Halfway through the journey, I met a lady called Freda Alfred. She was a Northern Shoshone. And when I met her, we built an instant rapport because I had tried to open up and be honest about why I was there to learn from her people. One evening, she took me for a walk through these birch forests, which were by the Yukon River. And she was teaching me about the spiritual significance of the birch trees to the people of Native American, Canadian, Alaskans, and all over the world. They have very much a spiritual significance. During that journey, she also mentioned to me about what was happening to the river and to the environment and the melting permafrost that was really stretching all the way along the Yukon River. And what is happening in the permafrost due to the warming climate is actually eroding the side of the Yukon River. And it's pouring into the river, and it's changing the water in the river, as well as mining, which is happening upriver. Well, during this walk, she took me and sat me down by this river, and she told me this quote. Now, this quote had been passed down from her father and his grandmother, her grandmother, so it had gone from grandmother to father to her. And she took my hand and she said, "When you go home, can you tell this to people? Can you teach people this, or the ethos behind this message?" And once you have respect, you care, and when you care, you share, and once you share, you teach. What she was saying to me was all ways of living, not with regards to just the spiritual, but environmentally as well. After I left that village, and we continued further down the river, a lot of people, especially the Yupik Eskimos of Alaska, would say roughly around the same thing, not those exact words, but the same things. And everything that they were saying was all environmental based. Our lives are changing, our culture is changing because we can't live off the land. And that is because the river is freezing later. It's freezing later, and it's melting earlier. And their wildlife is moving around the landscape, and they can't continue to live off the land anymore. So the warming climate, especially in the Yukon territories and northern Alaska, it's affecting the cultural sort of landscape out there. And that is Freda. That's a picture that our photographer on the expedition took. A beautiful woman with incredible insights. When I came home, each journey I embarked upon, especially each photographic expedition I embarked upon, because of the powerful stuff I was taught on that expedition by the native communities, each expedition that I did had an environmental thread. I set up an expedition to northern Norway, to a place called Sjunkhatten, and we tried to raise awareness for the last great wildernesses of Europe, which are situated in Sweden and that stretch across to Norway. I also trekked from the north of the Hebrides to the south of the Hebrides to raise awareness try to raise awareness just for keeping the pristine nature of the Outer Hebrides. And I also learnt about the ancient crofting culture, which permeates itself all the way through the Outer Hebrides. But when I came home, I really wanted to incorporate the environmental approach with my passion and my love and my just deep desire for photography. But what I really wanted to do was challenge myself. Normally when I go on a photographic journey or an expedition, I've got a camera like over there, snapping away thousands of images. And sometimes when you have a camera and you're photographing people or an expedition or the environment, you can forget actually how many pictures you're taking. And sometimes when I'd come home from an expedition, I could have upwards of 800 to 1,000 pictures. And sometimes when you're doing that, you can actually separate yourself from the experiential element of the expedition. So when you're behind it, you're just focusing on composition and story and all this kind of thing. But the actual reason why you're there is separated by the camera. So when I came home, the Kodak expedition or the Kodak journey was for me to reconnect with the environment again in the most simplest way possible. And that was with one of those bad boys. Who, put your hand up if you used one of those in the past. Yeah. That's showing our age, isn't it? Yeah, I've used one of those when I was a kid all the time, but the reason why I use that is for its limitations. There's only 27 images on that camera, and you have to be a certain distance away from your subject or something like that, and it's the most simplest form of photography possible. So what I did was I left... I didn't use, on this expedition, I took my DSLR, but I didn't use it. I didn't use my smartphone at all. And I crossed two major areas of the Lake District. One area was Coniston. I don't know if anyone's been to Coniston, absolutely gorgeous place. And the other was Buttermere. And during that journey, I had to take, or I challenged myself to just use the 27 images that are on that camera to document the whole story. So I'm going to show you a couple of those tonight. This was the basic route. So you've got Coniston at the bottom. We just cut up through the valley, up across. Anyone been to the top of Old Man of Coniston? Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful, pristine, beautiful. There's quarries up there that are really a memento to the past and the sort of the mines and stuff that were up there. I trekked across all the way across the top in absolutely god-awful weather, in mist and rainy weather, and I camped just at the top of Grey Friar, which is where the tent is. And where you see Cockley Beck, that's where I trekked down to in the morning, and we had a support team there. Neil, who's here tonight, our support team was waiting there. Then I made my way over to Buttermere. Buttermere is the actual village itself, it's just in the corner, and the plan was to do this whole route. I really wanted to just get as much as I could of the whole landscape and immerse myself into the landscape and really challenge myself to get varying degrees of terrain in the images. But the weather was so bad, again, as torrential rain, I only did the first part and camped up there. And actually that night I got a real crash course in Mother Nature because we had actually unexpected gale force winds and it ripped my tent out of the ground while I was in it. Yeah, and actually, Neil, raise your hand, Neil, where are you? I actually went and cuddled up with Neil for the night, much to probably his disgust. So I'm just going to show you, hopefully the trailer will... This is the trailer of the film that I'm making about the expedition.
This project is purely about creative connection, taking a step back and slowing down. We're used to having so much choice. Just one camera, one chance at the images. This is where I belong out here, with my camera in wild places. They always say I'm just trying to freeze emotion and wonder all in one frame.
Yeah, so that's the film that's going to be coming out soon. When I came back from the Yukon, something really stuck in my mind that was a Yupik Eskimo guy called Snook. And he said to me, I had about 3 or 4 weeks left of the journey, and he said to me, when you slow down more, you'll look more, and when you look more, you'll learn more. So when I embarked upon that journey, and when I thought about the sort of the inception of the journey, I had that in my mind all the time. It was about slowing down. It was about looking more and learning more about where I was, about the environment, about my place within the environment, and how I could work towards raising awareness for protecting these sort of special places that I love to spend most of my life in. I'm just going to just show you, if I can, some of the images that I actually took on the Kodak camera. So this is, bearing in mind, this is a £5 camera that you can get anywhere. Okay, so, yeah, okay, thank you. So yeah, I'm just going to quickly run through, because I know we're probably short of time, but my sort of why I took the picture, which is just as important as the actual image you saw yourself. Actually, just as important as the image that you're seeing there. This, for me, was all about silhouette, and especially it had the way it lit the floor on the bottom. It was just absolutely beautiful. We were passing through these forests. This was in Buttermere, absolutely incredible, and the way the sun just lit that scene there was just absolutely incredible. This, for me, was all about contrasting colour. It was the tree, the perspective. And bearing in mind, these pictures have not been edited at all. These have come out in snappy snaps, believe it or not, on a CD, and then straight onto here. So these pictures haven't been edited. This is just a £5 camera. The beautiful moss contrast of colours and the tree there. This is above Buttermere, so not far from where my tent was that blew down, a place called Bleabury Tarn, and that's the look over Buttermere. So if anyone wants to go Buttermere, that's what you're going to get when you go there. Absolutely incredible. That was in the morning after the tent blew down. Absolutely beautiful sunrise, and I just loved the way the shadows just chopped the picture in half. This was actually a bomber crash site that we found. And there's lots of crash sites all over Wales, Scotland, Lake District, and they usually have quite a lot of memorials in them. And a lot of them, as just in paying homage to the people that actually died there, they leave all of the wreckage and the wheels. And there's actually some places in Wales where all the wreckage is in a lake, and you've still got the wheels and the fuselage, etc. Yeah, so that was actually a bomber crash site. Incredible. This one has a real dreamy sort of perspective to it, and you can see sort of a little scratchy mark that you get with the Kodak cameras at the top there. And when I took the camera out of my pocket to take this picture, because I saw the scene, the camera was actually hazed up because it'd been in my pocket and it was so cold outside. And I thought if I took a picture with that perspective, it would give the picture a dreamy look. So rather than drying the lens, I actually used what was happening with the situation to create the dreamy look in that picture. This was actually the campsite on the first night, and what I loved about this picture was how the light was separating the valley in two. And whenever you see light like that, especially when it's going through trees, that's actually called Shive Lights. So whenever you've got a really misty morning and just walking through the woodlands and you see how the mist is coming through the trees, that's actually called Shive Lights. That's the strange tree that I took a picture of, perspective, but that one's probably my most favourite one. Forests are my thing. I love forests and woodlands. There's so much beauty and knowledge and nature involved in forests. That was one of the, going up the Old Man of Coniston, that's the quarry houses. And I love places like this because it takes you back to the past, and actually beautiful places. If you just spend some time in all the quarries, especially Wales and Scotland and Lake District, absolutely incredible. This one for me is not one of the best pictures, but it represents the fern, which is a forest floor plant. Then you've got the trees and you've got the mountains in the background. I was just trying to create the three elements there all together in that picture. This was, where the Shive Light picture, this was taken from to the left. Okay, and that's another vantage point. And my tent was exactly where that picture was being taken. And that's what I woke up to in the morning. It was absolutely just, oh God, I love what I do. This picture to me, very, very simple picture, but I thought it represented probably the landscape and the history of the landscape. Probably in thousands of years ago, that might have been, that single pine there might have been a whole pine forest all over that mountainside. So I thought it was quite an interesting picture to have one lone pine left there. There's the offending article that blew down. And these were some plants in the floor, and the moss was growing up them. Just thought that was very interesting. Not many more to go now. Okay, there's another one that was coming down from the first day's campsite. Absolutely gorgeous. So the support grew where Neil was. He was just in the valley down there. And I think this is the last picture. I just love the perspective of that. Absolutely fantastic. I told you about Snook earlier. That is Snook. He lived in a place called Fort Yukon in Alaska, which is about 1,000 miles, so half the distance of the journey. And he said to me that what he wanted me to take away was the fact that all animals, from the humble butterfly to the birds, to the forest, to the trees, to the mountains, to the Father Sky, Mother Earth, all possess the spirit of life. And he says, whenever you go away, always remember that. You're passing through any terrains, always remember that. And always to pass on that to your message to your friends and your family, etc., when you get home. And I think if we all absorb that globally connected perspective between us and nature, because we are part of nature, we'll have that greater sense of duty to protect what we have. We just have to adopt that connectedness between nature and ourselves. With that in mind, I would like everybody in the whole room to reach under their chair, and there's one person in this room with a Kodak camera under their chair. Can you raise that camera above your head, please? Who's got the camera? Have you got it? Oh my God, that's actually Neil, that's my friend. So up we come, Neil. Up we come. So Neil, that's actually who I was talking about. So Neil, if you could come up on the stage. Neil is actually going to close my presentation for me. So in this folder is one copy of every one of the pictures, the 27 images, and there's only ever going to be one printout of all of those images. So I'm going to give that to Neil, who's actually another photographer, for God's sake. But Neil's actually going to read something from the front of the book to everybody in the room. And that will close the presentation. Congratulations, mate. Well done, buddy. Well done. Yeah, we worked together, but this isn't planned.
I was not expecting this at all.
So do you want to read that to the crowd?
Yeah, okay.
If you want to stand by the microphone there, mate.
Okay. No pressure, thanks.
No,
I'm
sorry.
completely not expecting this. Devoted we must be to the conservation cause. We should give it all... no pressure. We should give it all of our time, effort and heart. Give what you can, but do not burn yourselves out or break your hearts. Let us save at least half of our lives for the enjoyment of this wonderful world which still exists. Leave your dens, abandon your cars, and walk out into the great mountains, the deserts, the forests, and seashores. Those treasures still belong to all of us. Enjoy them to the full. Stretch your legs, expand your lungs, enliven your hearts, and we will outlive the greedy swine who wants to destroy it all in the name of what they call growth. So I ask you, how do you care? How will you share? What will you teach? And how will you protect?
Thank you. That's yours, mate. Take it away.